The night air hung heavy with tension, a palpable silence blanketing the empty streets. A pair of shadows lurked, their hearts racing, disbelief mixing with excitement. They were convinced that tonight would be easy. They scanned the surroundings, eyes glinting under the glow of a flickering street lamp, zeroing in on their target, an unassuming old man, hunched over his cane, slowly making his way home. What they didn't know was that this wasn't just any old man. He moved with a deliberate rhythm, a kind of quiet dignity lying beneath the surface. As he shuffled, the moonlight revealed weathered hands clutching the cane, a hint of strength hidden in those gnarled fingers. "Look at him," one of the thieves chuckled, adjusting his cap. "He won't see us coming." They took a step closer, emboldened by the flickering neon signs that promised quick cash and easy scores. Now, the old man, Mr. Thompson, had walked this route for decades. He knew every crack in the pavement, every whisper of the wind that heralded a storm. Age had seasoned him, but it hadn't diminished him. In his youth, he had been a boxer, quiet, steadfast, but fierce when it mattered. As the shadows advanced, he sensed their approach. Without quickening his pace, he tightened his grip on the cane, not out of fear but out of preparation. The old oak wood had withstood storms and struggles. It had stories to tell, just like him. He was a man of resilience, and while he might seem frail to the untrained eye, buried within him was a fierce spirit that had weathered many battles. The thieves saw their moment and moved in. Laughter echoed through the street as if taunting the old man. But just as they lunged forward, the night erupted with a sudden stillness. Mr. Thompson turned, his eyes sparkling with a mix of courage and wisdom. He asked, his voice steady like an anchor in a storm. Confusion flickered across the faces of the young men. They expected fear, but instead they faced calm. One of them stepped closer, brimming with confidence. "We're just having a little fun. How about that cane?" With a slight, almost imperceptible smile, Mr. Thompson took a deep breath. His voice was low but laced with an authority that demanded respect. The thieves exchanged glances, surprise evident in the way their bravado wavered. In their minds they painted him as an easy victim, a man past his prime, barely able to walk. They didn't know that wisdom wasn't learned in the classroom but in the tough, bitter circumstances of life. They didn't realize that confidence could spring not from age but from experiences that shaped a man's heart. It all clicked. Mr. Thompson was not afraid, he was calculating. In one fluid motion he shifted his weight, brandishing the cane like a sword. "You should rethink your choices," he warned, his stance firm, his gaze unwavering. Something within the thieves crackled, a surge of fear mingled with the remnants of their confidence. They hadn't expected this from their seemingly feeble target. They hesitated, weighing their options. "Just walk away, old man," one of them spat, but there was a tremor in his voice. He'd expected easy pickings, not a confrontation that stoked the flame of fear lurking within him. But Mr. Thompson took a step forward, cane unwavering. "You've chosen the wrong man to mess with. I've fought tougher battles in my life," he retorted, intensity rippling beneath his words. The air grew thick, tension crackled like thunder. Time seemed to stretch, pulling each moment into a slow, agonizing swirl. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the thieves finally narrowed their focus. Underestimating the situation had become a costly mistake. They charged, but Mr. Thompson was ready. He swung the cane, not wildly but with precision honed by years of practice. The wood struck one of the thieves square in the stomach, sending him staggering backward. The world around blurred momentarily, fading into a haze. His partner, stunned, froze for a heartbeat, a mistake. Without a pause, Mr. Thompson unleashed a flurry of movement. The cane swooped, graceful and powerful. It was a dance of tenacity, each swing a testament to years of discipline. The night air was filled with a fierce melody, cracks, thuds, and the heavy breathing of shocked assailants overwhelmed by the unexpected ferocity of a man they had dismissed. Mr. Thompson had tapped into a reservoir of strength that came from years of fighting, not just physically, but the battles life had thrown his way. The second thief lunged, clawing for revenge, but miscalculated his reach. Mr. Thompson pivoted, his cane sweeping low, tripping the young man and sending him sprawling onto the pavement. The streetlights flickered, catching the spark in Mr. Thompson's eye. He was no longer just an old man. He had transformed into a warrior. It wasn't simply strength that powered him. It was conviction, heart, and the gratefulness of each breath. The two thieves, now beaten and bruised, had never imagined they would be outmatched, not by age but by experience and sheer will. Mr. Thompson asked, his voice a cold whisper that sent chills through their spines. They scrambled to their feet, fear washing over their bravado like a cold wave. "We're sorry," one of them stammered, raising his hands in defeat, eyes wide and panicked. The old man merely looked at them, not with bitterness but with the kind of wisdom that speaks of having been through storms of his own. He stepped back and waved his cane dismissively. "Now run along, boys." With that, he turned, leaving the two young men behind. They didn't need to be told twice. They fled into the night, their laughter long gone, replaced by the echo of a lesson learned. A lesson about respect, strength, and the inevitability of underestimating those who have walked through life's wilderness. Mr. Thompson resumed his slow, deliberate walk home. As he navigated the familiar streets, he felt a warmth in his chest. Not just a victory over the thieves, but a resurgence of faith in himself. Each step was heavy with a reminder of his past, but lightened by the promise of resilience. He knew a fight wasn't always about fists and fury. Sometimes it was simply about standing tall when faced with adversity. That night would turn into a whisper through the neighborhood. It wouldn't be long before others knew of the old man who had defended himself against two thieves, how he fought back not just for his cane, but for dignity, for wisdom, and for every person who had ever been overlooked or underestimated. In the days and weeks to follow, people began stopping him on the street, stories of the confrontation dances vividly in their minds. He became more than just a figure shuffling along the sidewalk. He became a symbol of strength against injustice, a reminder that age doesn't equate to weakness, and that hidden within each person is a power waiting to be unleashed. And so, Mr. Thompson continued his walks, but now, with every step, he found a crowd rallying around him, young and old, sharing stories of resilience and bravery. The city itself started changing, evolving as people began to see beyond the surface. They celebrated strength in all its forms, from the smallest acts of kindness to the grandest gestures of bravery. By fighting back against two thieves on a quiet night, Mr. Thompson had ignited something profound. He had shown that what matters is not just the body's ability to fight, but the spirit's capacity to rise above, and perhaps, just perhaps, the greatest battles of all are the ones fought in the quietest moments of our lives. So, the next time you see someone who may appear weak, take a closer look. You just might uncover a story of strength as fierce as a lion's roar, a heart as steadfast as the oak, and a spirit that refuses to bow down to the darkness. Because in this world, heroes come in all shapes, and sometimes it takes a weathered old man with a cane to remind us just how powerful we can be. The rain fell in sheets that night, a relentless downpour that washed over the city, blending shadows and reflections into a murky canvas. Street lamps flickered, struggling to penetrate the heavy darkness. It was the perfect cover for two figures lurking in the alleyway. They exchanged whispers, eyes darting toward an old man making his way down the slick pavement, cane in hand, moving slowly, deliberately. "Look at him," one of them snickered, his voice dripping with arrogance. "He's just an old fool." They shared a conspiratorial grin, eager for their night's work, but they didn't know what lay beneath that frail exterior. Every step the old man took was measured, a subtle reminder that age had made him wise, hard as stone, soft as a heart. This was Mr. Henderson, a man who lived alone but carried the strength of countless stories in his bones. He had seen battles fought both inside and out. As the thieves moved closer, a chill spread through the air, a tension that prickled at the back of Mr. Henderson's neck. He had lived long enough to sense danger. He lifted his gaze, locking eyes with them, steady and unyielding. "Evening, boys," he said, a hint of amusement lacing his voice. The thieves exchanged glances, momentarily faltering from his unexpected confidence. "Cut the small talk, old man." There it was, the predictable demand. They expected fear, obedience. Instead, Mr. Henderson's expression was calm, eyes sharp with clarity. His voice dropped, resonating with a low power that made the air hum. The taller thief took a step forward, sneering. "You won't do a thing, Grandpa." Mr. Henderson remained unfazed, his cane quiet against the asphalt. "Every bone tells a story, young man." And suddenly the night felt electric. The thieves shifted their stances, uncertainty creeping into their bravado. They weren't sure what to make of the old man standing before them. He didn't fit the image they had concocted, a frail victim just waiting to be taken down. "It's not too late to walk away," Mr. Henderson offered. But the thieves needed validation. Their egos demanded they assert dominance. They lunged forward, expecting an easy win. What they didn't anticipate was the swiftness of Mr. Henderson's reflexes. With the precision of years behind him, his cane swung with remarkable accuracy, making contact with the taller thief's knee. The crack echoed through the alley, a sharp reminder that strength can manifest in unexpected forms. The man stumbled back, shock written across his face. Shouted the other thief in a panic, but their resolve was unraveling. Mr. Henderson pivoted, senior strength flowing through him. He dodged the second assailant, the sickening scent of fear rising as the young man slipped in the rain, feet losing grip. Mr. Henderson's cane was raised, not with malice but with iron resolve. He pointed the cane in their direction, almost like a weapon forged from resilience. The second thief, now realizing the tide had turned, tried to retreat, but it was too late. Mr. Henderson, with a resolve born from years of choice and consequence, charged forward, delivering a swift jab to the gut of the man closest to him. The youth doubled over, gasping for air. The alley became a battlefield, that night a life and death struggle played out under flickering lights. Mr. Henderson was not just defending himself. He was reclaiming a narrative that had long been denied to him, the narrative of a warrior, a man unbroken by time. A part of him relished the challenge, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Each strike of his cane was not just physical, it was a roar against the injustices he had faced throughout his life, the times he had been dismissed simply because of his age. The thieves, once confident, were now terrified. Fear is a powerful weapon, sometimes stronger than any fist. They were left stammering, their bravado crumbling under the weight of their mistakes. One of them gasped, the fight draining from him. Mr. Henderson lowered his cane slightly, observing as the young men regained a shred of humility amidst the chaos. "Life is full of lessons," Mr. Henderson said, panting slightly but standing strong. "And tonight you're facing one of the toughest." They scrambled back, the look of defeat etched across their faces. "We're sorry." The bravado was gone, replaced with desperation, a realization of the consequences born from their choices. With a final flourish, Mr. Henderson straightened his back, eyes glinting with a challenge. "Then go, leave this path behind." They ran, feet splashing through the puddles, scrambling away into the shadows that held them like a blanket. The adrenaline that had surged within Mr. Henderson began to ebb away, leaving him alone in the stillness, the rain pattering softly around him. He sighed deeply, feeling both the weight of the encounter and the thrill of victory coursing through him. The night gradually quieted, offering a reflective calm. As he continued on his way home, the reality of what had just unfolded hit him like a wave. He had fought back against youth and recklessness, not just to defend himself but to reclaim a sense of pride. Age is often synonymous with frailty in society's eyes, but tonight he had shown it was also a vessel of wisdom. He walked slowly but purposefully, the sound of his cane a steady heartbeat that echoed within him. The old man's resolve grew even stronger. He thought of the battles he had faced, his time in the war, the loss of loved ones, and the days spent cultivating gardens after the storms. Each experience could have crushed him, but instead, they became stepping stones leading him to a path of resilience. Mr. Henderson reached his home, standing on his porch and gazing out into the rain. Streetlights flickered, their glow illuminating memories that danced through his mind. That encounter would become a ripple in the lives of the thieves, a story they would carry with them. Word of the old man who had fought back would spread through the neighborhood, reaching places where courage often shifted in the shadows, hidden beneath the weight of misunderstanding and doubt. In that community, where youth too often overlooked the wisdom of age, Mr. Henderson emerged as a symbol of strength. He transformed into a living testament to the idea that perception could twist into harsh realities only if one allowed it. But strength meant more than just physical prowess. It was about standing firm in the face of dismissiveness, refusing to back down when society tries to define us by our limits. Weeks passed, and the rain, once a harbinger of terror, turned into a messenger of hope. Mr. Henderson found himself visited by neighbors, young people curious about the fierce old man who had stood his ground. They brought stories, and together they shared laughter and wisdom. As they gathered on his porch, they asked questions, yearning to understand the depths of his experiences. He became a storyteller, weaving tales of resilience that stirred something within them, a sense of courage that spilled over into their own lives. Through him, they learned respect, the kind that must go both ways. Young and old began to bridge gaps forged by misunderstanding and bravado. They no longer saw Mr. Henderson as merely an old man on the street, but as a mentor with a heart full of history, ready to guide them toward a future built on mutual respect. It was a beautiful transformation, illustrating how one night's encounter could change minds and inspire dreams. And amid stories shared, laughter echoed, and lessons learned, Mr. Henderson felt an undeniable energy flood through him. He understood now life was not just about the battles won or lost. It was about the connections we forge and the legacies we leave behind. And in that process, every person, no matter their age or demeanor, could wield immense power, not merely through fists or strength, but through courage, understanding, and the spirit that never yields. Because the truth is, it's not the years in your life that count. It's the life in those years that creates the greatest stories of all. And Mr. Henderson, he had just begun to write his. With each story shared, with every brave soul listening, he became not just a figure of strength but a reminder that true resilience knows no age, and that sometimes the most powerful heroes are those who walk quietly, carrying the weight of wisdom as their strength. The alley was drenched in shadows, the kind that flickered under the dim glow of an old street lamp. Rain-soaked pavement reflected a murky light, creating a scene straight out of a noir film. It was the perfect night for mischief as two young men huddled in the darkness, their breath rising in puffs of vapor on the cool night air. The city slept, yet desire buzzed like an electric current between them. They were ready for action, zeroing in on their next target, a frail-looking old man making his way down the slick sidewalk, cane tapping out a rhythmic beat of determination. "Look at him," one of them scoffed, barely holding back laughter. "Easy pickings." His partner nodded, eyes gleaming with mischief. As they slinked closer, they sensed the old man's quiet strength, though they dismissed it completely. This was Harold, a retired boxer known only by the rumors that whirled through the neighborhood. To outsiders, he was a frail elder, but deep within, he housed a fire ignited by years of experience and hardship. Harold sensed them before the weight of their intentions hit him. He had walked this path long enough to feel the shift in the air. His cane tapped a steady rhythm against the ground, and with each step it became an extension of his own will. He turned his head slightly, catching a glimpse of their faces. Instead of fear, he felt a mixture of pity and intrigue. "Evening, boys," he said, voice steadying like an anchor in a tempest. There was a twinkle in his eye, a challenge echoing beneath his words. "Shut it, old man," the taller one snapped, stepping forward with bravado. Harold tilted his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. His voice was a deep rumble, with a cadence that stirred something deep within the stillness of the night. The younger man laughed, but there was a tremor in his voice. "You don't stand a chance against us." But rather than retreating, Harold squared his shoulders, evoking an old spirit that had been tested far too many times to falter now. "You boys don't understand what strong means." The taller thief charged forward, fueled by bravado, but he was blinded by his own arrogance. With a swift, surprising motion, Harold swung his cane. With the precision of a seasoned fighter, he landed a sharp strike to the younger man's knee. The sound of impact echoed through the alley, a sickening crack that sent shockwaves through the air. The young man fell, gasping as he clutched his knee. Shock transformed into fear, the bravado they had built crumbling like dry leaves underfoot. The taller thief shouted, stumbling backward. Harold didn't give them a chance to reassemble their confidence. He advanced, cane held high, embodying the spirit of a warrior. "Life has thrown harder punches at me than either of you could dream," he declared, voice steady and clear as moonlight. The alley now became a stage, an arena of sorts where the unexpected unfolded. Harold moved with fluid expertise, every motion reflecting years of resilience. The taller thief tried to retreat, but Harold was there, fierce and unwavering. He swung the cane again, not as a weapon, but as a reminder of the wisdom that the young thieves had overlooked. The second thief lunged, full of misplaced confidence, but he stumbled, slipping on the wet pavement. Harold seized the opportunity, leveraging his weight as he deflected the man's advance with calculated grace. In one fluid motion, he struck again, knocking the wind out of the assailant. "Please!" The fallen thief gasped, struggling to get back on his feet. Fear surged in their eyes as they reevaluated the situation. What they thought would be a simple robbery had turned into a nightmare. The once cocky demeanor evaporated, replaced by a raw, unfiltered panic. The taller one managed to stammer, desperation coating his words. Harold's expression softened just a fraction. "It's not too late for you to find a better path. Respect is earned, not taken," he said, voice tinged with sincerity. As the thieves scrambled away into the night, Harold stood firm, breathing heavily but proud, a titan against the torrent of misconceptions. The rain dripped from his brow, but he was unbroken, heart pounding with the thrill of having leveraged not just his strength but his wisdom. He walked home slowly, each step a reminder of the battle he had just fought, not just against two brash youths, but against the tide of a society that often dismissed him as inconsequential. The night had transformed that unlikely encounter into an empowering moment in his life that reaffirmed every lesson he had learned along the way. In the days that followed, whispers filled the neighborhood like leaves dancing in the wind. They spoke in hushed tones, awestruck conversations hurtling through street corners. Harold found comfort in these stories, not from the accolades, but from the way people began to see him. No longer just an old man shuffling through the streets, he became a symbol of resilience. Parents began to tell their children about him, cautioning them against underestimating anyone based solely on age. It sparked a dialogue about respect, how strength is not always visible, nor is it defined by physical age. They began to see the wisdom etched into Harold's every wrinkle, every slow-moving step he took. Stories unfolded, passionate discussions erupted. The world around him began to shift. Young people would approach him in the park, eager to hear tales of his past. One afternoon, he found himself surrounded by a group of teens, excitement radiating from their youthful energy. One asked, eyes bright with curiosity. "Fighting isn't just about the punches you throw." Harold settled down on a nearby bench, hands resting gently on his cane. "It's about knowing when to swing and when to absorb the blow. Life will hit you hard." As he shared stories of his boxing days, of victories and losses, the teens leaned in closer, entranced. They didn't just grasp the physical lessons, but also the emotional and psychological truths, a need for resilience, the importance of respect, the courage to stand tall. He continued sharing, recounting moments not just from the ring but from life itself, the losses, the triumphs, and the endless lessons learned. These all became threads woven into the fabric of their understanding, binding generations together, reinforcing the idea that wisdom knows no age. Despite the life lessons he imparted, each encounter filled Harold with a renewed spirit. The world around him was vibrant, alive with the energy of youth eager to learn. In turn, he learned from them, too, their hopes and dreams, their struggles and victories, intertwining with his own. But not everyone saw Harold's strength. A few weeks after that fateful night, the two thieves returned, emboldened by their earlier escape. They skulked through the same alley, embittered by their fear and humiliation. "Let's show that old man who really runs this town," one growled, fury simmering in his gut. Their plan was reckless, driven by a desire for revenge more than rationale. As they approached, shadows cloaking them, Harold was leaning against a lamppost, cane resting at his side, the very picture of calm. He called out, voice steady, as if their approach was just a casual stroll. The taller thief paused, blood rushing to his cheeks, transforming his bravado into anger. They were desperate now, desperation a dangerous motivator. Harold stepped forward, determination radiating from him. In that moment, he saw the hesitation in their eyes, the flicker of doubt. He felt every lesson they'd taught through fists and punches life had shown him that the best way to face hostility was with wisdom and understanding. This could end badly for you, the taller one warned, a desperate attempt to project authority. Or it could end with you taking a different path, Harold replied calmly. Words hung in the air, heavy with expectation. The alley was still again. They stewed for a moment, uncertainty battling arrogance. The second thief spat, his bravado faltering. I know life's greatest lessons come from our choices. The key is to make choices that build you up, not tear you down, Harold interjected, his voice reaching deep into their meaning. Strength lies in standing up for what's right. He sensed the shift, the tightening of their bravado. Something had penetrated the fog of aggression. With a final glance, the thieves turned and vanished into the shadows, not out of fear, but perhaps for the first time, a hint of respect brushing their hearts. Harold stood tall, breathing in the tension of the moment. He had shifted their narrative once again, not with violence but with wisdom. The very essence of resilience was not just strength. It was the ability to guide, to reflect, and to choose peace over conflict. Weeks turned into months, and more stories piled up, intertwining with each other like veins in the earth. Children grew up upon listening to the tales of the old boxer who fought not just with his fists but with his heart and spirit. With every encounter, old and young bridged the gaps created by time and misunderstanding. Harold became a living testament to showing society the power of respect and resilience. Time marched on, as it does, yet in a world filled with flickers of hope and crumbling communities, Harold had ignited a fire. He was no longer just a symbol of strength for himself, but a figure who enlivened the lives of many, weaving hopes for a brighter future. As he leaned back on the porch, Kane resting at his side, he smiled, knowing that he had not only proved them wrong. He had sparked inspiration, revealing to a generation that strength lies in wisdom, a reminder that life is filled with choices, and every single one shapes our story, weaving us together as a community. In the end, he understood that even the fiercest battles are often won not with fists, but with the unwavering power of respect, and the profound truth that true strength knows no age. Each lesson imparted left a legacy that would echo through the streets long after he was gone, a legacy resting upon the shoulders of those willing to learn, listen, and grow. The rain fell heavily that night, drumming rhythmically on the pavement, creating a symphony of splashes against the city streets. In the flickering light of a distant street lamp, two figures huddled in a shadowy corner of an alley. Their laughter cut through the air, a cruel, mocking sound that echoed off the brick walls. "Look at that old codger," one of them sneered, eyes glinting with mischief. Standing just a few paces away, Harold shuffled along the sidewalk, Kane tapping against the ground like a heartbeat. To anyone else he might have seemed frail, an elderly man lost in the night. But in his heart he carried the weight of many untold stories, fables of battles fought and challenges met head-on. The two thieves watched, their confidence swelling like a balloon, convinced they were about to snatch an easy prize. They had no idea what lay beneath his frail exterior. As they exchanged eager glances, Harold felt their presence lingering near. "Evening, gentlemen," he called out, his voice steady despite the looming threat. He kept moving forward, maintaining a calmness that belied the storm brewing in the alley. "Shut it, old man. Just step aside and hand over that cane and your wallet," the taller thief barked, confidence spilling over with each word. Harold stopped, Kane resting against the ground, and turned his steely gaze upon them. His voice resonated with a quiet power that shot through the air. The thieves hesitated, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Harold had faced tougher opponents than these two before. He had lived long enough to know that true strength comes in many forms, and he was not about to let them underestimate him. The second thief urged, stepping forward, missing the warning signals flashing like neon lights in the dark. With a deep breath that seemed to gather the winds of his past, Harold straightened his shoulders. "You may think you're strong, but real strength is in control, discipline, and wisdom." In that moment, the air thickened with tension, a palpable current that swirled around them. two men glanced at each other, confusion mingling with fear. They recoiled slightly, not quite expecting this old man to challenge them so boldly. Before they could recover, the taller thief lunged forward, fueled by sheer bravado. But Harold had been waiting for this. With a swift, calculated motion, he swung his cane. It caught the thief right in the stomach, the sharp crack echoing through the alley like a gunshot. The young man's breath whooshed out of him, and he doubled over, surprised by the force of the blow. For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze as Harold's cane rose and fell with precision. The fearsome reality swallowed the thieves whole, and their bravado evaporated into the misty night. Shouted the second thief, rushing forward, but he didn't know what he was walking into. With stunning agility, Harold sidestepped and delivered another strike, the cane connecting with the assailant's leg, sending him sprawling to the ground. Harold's voice was firm, but there was a flicker of sadness in his eyes. As the second thief scrambled back to his feet, panic washed over him. They had thought he was an easy target, but instead, they found themselves overpowered by the wisdom and experience of a man who refused to be underestimated. "Wait!" the taller thief gasped, breathless and unnerved. Harold retorted, standing tall, cane raised like a knight brandishing his sword. The thieves froze, uncertainty gripping them like a biting wind. That question hung in the air like a dense fog, forcing them to confront the crumbling foundation of their bravado. "Go, just go," the taller one said, fear creeping into his voice. Harold lowered his cane slightly, gauging the moment. "You've got a choice. Walk away and make it count." They hesitated, glancing at each other, before scrambling away, fleeing into the shadows from whence they came, defeated and humbled. For Harold, the battle wasn't just physical. It was a representation of life's conflicts, a reminder that strength could manifest in so many forms. It thrummed through his veins, invigorating him as adrenaline surged. In the days that followed, whispers of the encounter spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. The story of the old man who fought back against two young thieves became a legend. People gathered at coffee shops and street corners, animated conversations swirling around Harold, a man they had long since overlooked. One man exclaimed. Another added, eyes wide with amazement. While Harold went about his daily routine, something began to shift within the community. No longer just a figure in the background, he was a symbol of resilience, proof that what lies beneath the surface often holds more strength than meets the eye. Children began to approach him, curiosity brightening their eyes. "Mister," he chuckled softly, a warm smile spreading across his face. "It's true, but remember, it's not always about fighting." They listened as he shared stories, laughter dancing in the air. He spoke of his life as a boxer, the matches he had fought, not just in the ring but against the challenges life threw at him. Each encounter was a lesson in determination, respect, and the power of choice. Soon, a young boy named Tommy approached him, knitting his brows in deep thought. Mr. Harold knelt down to meet Tommy's gaze, sincerity shining through his eyes. "Strength comes from the heart, Tommy. It's about being brave enough to stand up for yourself and for others." Months passed, filled with stories and laughter, connections blooming in the community. One sunny afternoon, Harold found himself at the local park, sunlight warming his skin as he watched kids play. In one corner, he noticed the two thieves from that night, now apologetic and contemplative. They had changed, visibly impacted by their encounter with him. "Hey, mister," one shouted, waving hesitantly. Surprised, he straightened up, a mixture of emotions swirling within him as they walked closer. "We wanted to say we're sorry," the taller one said, sincerity cracking through his tough exterior. Harold assessed them carefully, recognizing the authenticity in their voices. "Apologies are a start, but actions speak louder." The second thief nodded, visibly remorseful. "We're trying to change our lives. We've started volunteering, helping out around the neighborhood." Harold smiled, warmth flooding his chest. "That's good to hear. You've made a choice." As they walked away, a sense of pride swelled within him. Every interaction, every life touched through his strength, echoed like ripples in the water, growing wider and enveloping the neighborhood in compassion. Life continued to bloom around Harold. He shared sit-downs with community members, imparting wisdom. The streets became alive with camaraderie, respect forged in dialogues that broke down walls of misunderstanding. The narrative shifted, and suddenly, age became a badge of honor instead of a sign of weakness. Then one fateful evening, Harold stood at his porch overlooking the street, Kane resting by his side. Memories surged as he gazed upon the town he had grown to love. The sounds of laughter and chatter filled the air, painting a portrait of connectivity where once there had been distance. But that night, the tranquility was disrupted by a familiar rustle in the distance. The air grew heavy again, a different kind of tension, and as he turned, he saw those same two thieves lurking in the shadows, this time not for violence but for redemption. "Mister," they asked hesitantly, hesitation lining their features. He gestured them forward, recognizing the storms they were battling within themselves. "After what happened, we started a group to help kids learn about respect and being strong. We think you should join us." Harold locked eyes with them, a surge of pride swelling inside him. The transformation in them was clear. This was no longer about fists but about life lessons, turning despair into hope. "I'd be honored," he replied, a smile playing on his lips. The evenings rolled into weeks and summer turned to fall, the air crisp with change. Soon, Harold became a guiding light for children across the community, teaching them not only about strength and respect, but also about compassion, empathy, and the power of choice. His journey combined with theirs, forming a tapestry of resilience that wove a new bond through the community, creating a legacy that would outlast his years. Every story shared, every lesson taught was a reminder that true strength could blossom in unexpected places. In time, the town transformed, youth and age united, hand in hand, supporting each other, a beautiful embodiment of respect and admiration. Harold had lifted the veil, revealing the strength woven into the fabric of their existence. As he sat on his porch one evening, watching the sunset bathe the town in gold, he realized that he had not only proven the thieves wrong. He had sparked a movement, a belief that true strength lies within, waiting for the right moment to shine, reminding everyone that age does not define a person's capabilities. It merely serves to hone and craft them into something powerful. And from that day forward, Harold was more than just an old man in the neighborhood. He was a beacon of hope, a reflection of resilience, and a powerful reminder that through persistence, unity, and respect, they could shape a future where every person, old or young, could rise strong together. Rain poured down in relentless sheets, the kind that turned city streets into rivers of shimmering darkness. The weather matched the mood in the alley where two young thieves huddled, their laughter echoing ominously against the wet bricks. They were two shadows creeping in the night, eyes narrowed, hearts pounding with youthful arrogance. "Look at that old guy," sneered the taller thief, pointing towards a figure slowly making his way down the slick sidewalk. "What a joke." His companion chuckled, a cruel grin stretching across his face. The old man was Harold, a retired boxer, though few in the neighborhood truly knew him. To most, he was just an old man, bent over a worn cane, shuffling along in the dark. But beneath that frail exterior lived the heart of a warrior, forged through decades of struggle, triumph, and resilience. He had taken punches in the ring and in life, yet had learned to stand tall amidst adversity. As he approached, the young men moved closer, ready to pounce. Harold sensed their approach, an intuition honed through years of navigating the world. He looked up, meeting their gaze head-on, an unwavering calmness washing over him. "Evening, boys," he said, his voice steady and deep, cutting through the rain like a blade. "Nice night for a walk, huh?" The tall one stepped forward, bravado dripping from his words. With a slight smile, Harold replied, "You think because I'm old I'm helpless." The thieves exchanged confused glances, their confidence wavering as they tried to gauge the old man's intent. But before they could react, Harold continued, "Strength isn't just about muscles, it's about heart." In that moment, something shifted in the air. The rain fell harder, almost as if it were urging the confrontation to unfold. The thieves tightened their fists, realizing they had underestimated this old man. "Back off, old man," the second thief shouted, but his voice trembled. Harold straightened. With that, he shifted his weight, ready to confront them, his cane now a symbol of his resolve. Before they could react, the taller thief lunged, believing his youth and strength would easily overpower the old man. But in a burst of surprisingly quick movement, Harold swung his cane, connecting with the thief's knee. A sickening crack echoed through the alley and the young man crumpled to the ground, howling in pain. The second thief froze in disbelief, eyes wide, panic creeping in. Harold turned to him, his gaze fierce but not lacking compassion. "This is your lesson, boys. Age does not equate to weakness." Now backed into a corner, the second thief darted forward, desperately trying to prove his worth. But Harold was ready. With a swift pivot, he sidestepped, cane sweeping low and tripping the assailant. The thief landed hard on the wet ground, fear and embarrassment painting his face. Harold called, no longer speaking with anger but with the authority of experience. He stood firm, heart pounding but composed, the adrenaline coursing through him like fire. The two thieves scrambled to their feet, breathless, regret flickering across their faces. The taller one gasped, his bravado disappeared. Harold challenged, cane pointing at them like a teacher at disobedient students. The alley, once filled with tension, now felt like a stage for a life lesson. The rain still fell, washing away the remnants of their arrogance. The thieves hesitated, fear gripping them, realizing their mistake. Suddenly, the fight drained from them. The taller one stammered, voice shaking, glancing at his partner, who looked equally terrified. Harold lowered his cane slightly, a flicker of understanding passing between them. "You have a choice now." As they staggered back, drenched and defeated, Harold felt a rush of relief mixed with triumph. He had proven them wrong, but more importantly, he had given them a second chance. Watching them flee down the alley, he knew they'd carry this lesson, perhaps as a burden, but ideally as a turning point. In the days that followed, word of Harold's encounter spread through the neighborhood. Whispers reverberated from door to door, carrying tales of the old man who had stood his ground against two young thieves. People began to see him not as an aging figure but as a symbol of resilience. One woman exclaimed at the diner, "He fought back." Yet Harold stayed humble, continuing his routine along the streets, recognizing the shift without attempting to embrace the spotlight. To him, courage was not about recognition. It was the quiet determination to stand up for oneself and others. Children began to approach him in the park, eyes wide with wonder. "Mister," one boy exclaimed, enamored by the stories they had heard. "To be a hero, kid, you really must look out for everyone," he replied, kneeling down to meet their curious gazes. As the seasons turned, the other young people in the neighborhood began to seek Harold's wisdom. They shared their dreams and fears, tales of loss and longing. He became a sort of community elder, a fountain of knowledge that spilled over into the hearts of those willing to listen. Even the two thieves who had bolted that night returned, albeit cautiously. They approached him slowly, a mix of reluctance and respect in their eyes. "Mr. Harold, we're trying to change," the taller one said, visibly remorseful. "Good," Harold said, nodding. "Sometimes life teaches us the hardest lessons." They shared stories of how they had once walked the wrong path but were now trying to lift themselves up. Harold listened intently, guiding them gently, helping them navigate their memories without judgment. "Strength is about lifting others too," he told them. "You must remember the hurdles others face." Gradually, the neighborhood began to change. The laughter of children filled the air, and a sense of unity blossomed. They organized park cleanups and food drives, supporting one another in ways they had not before. The ripple effect of Harold's confrontation with the young thieves had sparked a transformation that engulfed the whole community. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the streets, Harold stood at the park, surrounded by children playing games. He watched the joyful chaos, feeling a warmth seep into his bones. "Harold!" the kids yelled, their voices bright and free. A group of teens approached him, too, once the idle bystanders who used to scoff at him, now eager to forge a connection. With a chuckle, Harold joined them, feeling younger with every laugh, understanding that age was no barrier to joy. A skateboard rolled toward him, and in a playful spirit he took it up. The kids cheered as he managed a shaky ride down the park path, laughter echoing around him. For a moment he was that young boxer again, adrenaline racing, filled with fight and hope. As the evening wound down, the community gathered, sharing stories over shared meals. The young thieves were now part of the fabric, ready to give back and learn under Harold's patient guidance. "Thank you for showing us the way," one of them said, sincerity vibrating in his voice. Harold looked at them, pride swelling within him. "None of us are perfect, but it's never too late to change," he replied. Each day spoke with lessons of dignity, humility, and the incredible strength found in unity. Harold became a beacon of hope, lighting the way for others who had felt lost. As months passed, each day built upon the last, the narrative of resilience evolving into a legacy that reached far beyond Harold himself. The community transformed from a disconnected group into a family bound by their shared strength and echoes of courage. And so, under the gaze of a full moon one fateful evening, Harold found himself sitting on that same porch where stories had once unfolded. The laughter and joy still echoed in the distance, wrapping around him like a warm embrace. He realized that he hadn't just fought off thieves, he had created a movement. Through his journey, he enabled others to rise, to fight against the tides of despair, reminding everyone that true strength, resilience, and wisdom are born not just from physical prowess, but from the pursuit of understanding and compassion. Every battle fought, every lesson shared turned the once frail figure into a giant of hope, a reminder that no one should ever be underestimated. In his heart, he knew that not only had he proven those young men wrong, but in the process, he had built something far more powerful, a community transformed, united in strength, empathy, and above all, respect for one another. The rain poured relentlessly, drenching the streets in a curtain of glistening water. Shadows flickered beneath the dim glow of street lamps, making the urban landscape feel alive with tension. In a narrow alley, two young men waited, their breath visible in the cold night air. They were high on adrenaline, eyes scanning for an easy mark. "Look at that old coot," one of them sneered, pointing to a figure shuffling down the sidewalk. The man moved slowly, cane tapping rhythmically against the pavement, each sound echoing like a heartbeat. His partner chuckled maliciously. "Let's teach him a lesson." Harold was that old man. He'd walked these streets for decades, a survivor of life's many battles both inside and outside of the boxing ring. To the untrained eye, he might seem frail, his hair white and thin, his back slightly hunched. But beneath it all lay a reservoir of strength, shaped by time, hardship, and resilience. As he approached the alley, Harold felt a shift in the air, something instinctual that made the tiny hairs on the back of his neck stand up. There was a stillness around him, broken only by the distant sound of the rain and the faint chatter of the city. But it was the boys. He sensed them, a dark presence waiting for an opportunity. "Good evening, gentlemen," Harold said, his voice smooth, unwavering. The moment felt electric, charged with tension. The taller thief stepped forward, a smirk plastered across his face. "Nice night for a stroll, old man." With a slight smile, Harold shook his head. His voice was calm, yet it pierced through the bravado of the young men. The flyers of arrogance flickered in the eyes of the thieves as they exchanged uncertain glances. What they thought would be an easy heist suddenly felt complicated. "Just give us the cash or else," the second thief threatened, stepping closer. Harold took a breath, collecting the strength coursing through his veins. "You boys are making a mistake. Real strength isn't about taking from others." The moment hung heavy in the air. The rain continued its rhythmic dance around them, and suddenly the heart of the old man seemed louder than the storm. The taller thief lunged forward, fueled by a false sense of bravado. But Harold, in an instinct born from years of survival, sidestepped with surprising agility. He swung his cane, a swift, precise movement, striking the thief square in the chest. The sound was brutal, a sickening crack that echoed through the alley. The young man fell back, muscles buckling beneath him, a mixture of shock and pain lighting up his face. The second thief froze, disbelief washing over him. "Maybe you should have thought twice before challenging someone with more to lose than you," Harold replied, voice steady but not unkind. As the fallen thief gasped for air, the second thief tried to advance, desperation fueling his panic. But Harold held his ground, cane ready, muscles tense and prepared. "If you think you can intimidate me, you're miscalculating," Harold warned. The air buzzed with a heightened sense of urgency. The rain drummed harder against the streets, but the atmosphere shifted from danger to revelation. The thief lunged, an act of foolish haste, but Harold was ready. With another swift movement he pivoted, swinging the cane low and sweeping the man's legs out from under him. The thief crashed against the wet pavement, a look of bewildered fear replacing aggression. Harold challenged, his voice firm. The moment stretched, the reality of the situation dawning on the thieves as they realized they were in over their heads. Fear gripped them like a steel vice, and that confidence they walked in with vanished like mist in the morning sun. "Please," the taller thief pleaded, his voice now a pitch higher than before. Fear blurred the line between bravado and regret. Harold looked at them both, a mix of pity and understanding in his eyes. "You've made your choices tonight. The real strength lies in learning from them. Go on, run." With that, the young men scrambled to their feet, pain and shame etched across their faces as they bolted from the alley, slipping through the rain-drenched streets to escape the reality of their own failing. Alone now, Harold wiped the rain from his brow, heart pounding, but not from fear. He had stood his ground, fought back, and proven to himself that age does not equate to weakness. In the following days, whispers began to weave through the community, spreading like wildfire. People shared with wide eyes. Conversations buzzed at street corners and cafes, and on porches as Harold transformed from a forgotten figure into a local legend. Someone would ask, and Harold, without seeking the spotlight, would share, time and again, the importance of respect, courage, and the understanding that strength comes in many forms. A young boy asked him one afternoon as they sat on a bench in the park. Harold smiled kindly, peering down at the inquisitive face. "Doubt is just part of life. What matters is how you respond to it." Soon, children would gather around him, intently listening as he spoke. These lessons weren't just about fighting. They were about resilience, respect, and the art of coming back stronger. The thieves, still lingering in the background of his mind, represented a kind of lost potential that Harold desperately wanted to communicate. They had made a choice, but he believed in their ability to change, to learn, just as he had in his own life. Weeks later, he spotted them once more, cautiously approaching him in the park. Their shoulders slumped, eyes darting nervously. They looked like shadows of their former selves. "Mister," the taller one asked, his voice downcast. "Of course," Harold replied, curiosity rippling through him. "We've been turning things around," the second thief admitted, shame lining his words. "We realized how foolish we were that night." At that moment, Harold felt a flicker of hope within him. That's a brave first step. Life offers plenty of chances to right wrongs. "We started volunteering at the community center," the taller thief confessed. Harold nodded, pride swelling in his chest. "Good. It takes real strength to acknowledge your past and seek forgiveness." With each conversation, Harold saw the transformation unfold before his eyes. The more they spoke, the more genuine the remorse. They had taken a step toward redemption, wresting control of their lives back from the precipice of despair. Weeks turned into months, and the community thrived around Harold. People began caring for one another, exhibiting compassion and supporting a new generation eager to learn. The neighborhood found a renewed spirit, born from the strength Harold had demonstrated against those thieves, sparking change. One sunny day, as families played in the park, children laughed, and people shared meals, Harold realized the impact of everything that had unfolded. It was more than a personal victory. It had evolved into a movement, uniting the community through understanding and respect. "Hey, Mr. Harold!" A group of kids shouted, their voices bright with excitement. He felt young again, swept up in their joy. He jogged over, heart leaping at the chance for connection and play. One teen teased, tossing him a basketball. Harold grinned, diving into the game with the kids, reliving memories of his boxing days, of competition fought not just for victory but for camaraderie. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the clouds in hues of orange and purple, the neighborhood gathered on the grass, sharing stories, laughter echoing through the crisp evening air. People of all ages came together, unified in community, revealing the bonds formed through adversity. Harold stood amidst it all, cane at his side, heart full. He had not just proven the thieves wrong. He had ignited a flame of hope and resilience in the entire community, a reminder that true strength never falters in the face of challenge. It emerges, often when least expected. And as twilight settled in, under the bright stars adorned across the night sky, Harold knew that he had created more than a story of survival. He had cultivated a legacy of courage, compassion, and respect that would ripple across generations, binding a community together in strength. It was a testament to the enduring spirit found within each of them, simply awaiting its moment to shine. The rain poured down relentlessly, drumming against the pavement like an angry heartbeat. From the shadows of a narrow alley, two young men crouched, their eyes glinting with anticipation. They shared a conspiratorial grin, two predators stalking their prey. "Look at that old man," whispered the taller one, pointing toward a figure shuffling down the slick sidewalk under the flickering glow of a street lamp. The old man moved slowly, cane in hand, every step taken with careful deliberation. "What a joke!" The second thief chuckled, an ugly sound filled with bravado and disregard. "This'll be easy." They couldn't have known that this frail-looking old man was Harold, a retired boxer, a warrior forged by years of resilience and experience. As Harold approached, he felt an unsettling energy in the air. Years of living in the city had attuned him to danger, and tonight he sensed it. His heart steadied as he kept moving, one foot in front of the other, crank of the old cane matching the beat of the storm. "Good evening, boys," Harold called out, his voice rich and calm, cutting through the thunderous noise of the rain. The taller thief stepped forward, chest out, confidence radiating. "Nice night for a stroll, old man. Hand over your wallet." Harold chuckled softly, the kind of laugh that held wisdom beneath its surface. "You think just because I'm old I'm weak?" The thieves exchanged wary glances, surprise flickering across their faces. They hadn't expected the old man to respond with such calmness, such authority. The second thief challenged, stepping closer, reckless with adrenaline. Harold squared his shoulders, the rain soaking him to the bone, but he stood unwavering. Strength doesn't come from muscle alone. Suddenly the air crackled with tension. The tall thief launched forward, convinced youth and recklessness would easily overpower the old man. But Harold was ready, instinct kicked in. He swung his cane with the precision of years spent in the ring. The wood connected with the thief's gut, sending him stumbling back with a shocked gasp, the fight evaporating from his eyes. The second thief froze, disbelief painting his face. He stammered, panic creeping in. Harold took a step forward, his presence larger than life. "You thought you could intimidate someone simply because of their age." As Harold advanced, the young men's bravado dissolved. The fallen thief struggled to regain his strength, clutching his stomach, while the remaining thief backed away, hesitation battling arrogance. The taller one whined, realization dawning that they had not been prepared for this. Harold asked, his voice akin to a teacher confronting wayward students. The atmosphere thickened with tension, the rain fell heavier, almost drowning out the heartbeat of it all. The would-be thieves stood frozen, caught between fear and the remnants of their bravado. The taller thief began, words stumbling over one another. Harold echoed, now standing tall, cane still poised in front of him. "You think this is fun?" In that moment the younger thief scrambled, panic finally overriding bravado, turning into a desperate plea. "We'll leave. Then go. Learn from this," Harold urged, lowering his cane slightly, giving them a chance. With that the two thieves bolted, stumbling away into the night, their laughter gone, replaced by shame and confusion. The alley grew quiet again, leaving Harold standing tall, alone yet invigorated. He took a deep breath and let the rain wash over him, revitalizing his spirit. He had stood his ground, proven his worth, and reminded them that age did not equate to weakness. But little did he know that this confrontation had just stirred the pot. Word spread quickly, and the two thieves wouldn't let the sting of humiliation go unchallenged. Days turned into weeks, the streets abuzz with whispers of the old man who had struck fear into the hearts of two would-be robbers. People began to respect Harold, not because he was old but for the strength he had shown. A neighbor would say, eyes wide with disbelief. Yet Harold remained humble, continuing his walks through the neighborhood, nodding kindly to those he passed. He felt a sense of pride but didn't seek the limelight. He understood the importance of heart over accolades. One quiet afternoon, as he wandered through the park, a group of children came running up to him. "Mr. Harold," they shouted, excitement bubbling over. He chuckled, sitting on a bench, the wood warm beneath him. They nodded eagerly, eyes wide, hanging on his every word as he recounted the tale of bravery and resilience, weaving in lessons of respect and integrity. Each line resonated, sparking curiosity in their young minds. But far from the park, the two thieves sat huddled together in a dimly lit room, plotting their revenge. The taller thief slammed his fist on the table, anger fueling his thoughts. "We can't let him get away with it." The second thief, who had been nursing a bruised ego, nodded slowly, a dangerous gleam in his eyes. "We'll teach him a lesson he won't forget." Fueled by embarrassment and humiliation, they decided to confront Harold once again, even if it meant descending deeper into darkness. They found allies within the shadier corners of their world, pulling together a crew hungry for chaos. As dusk began to cloak the streets in shadows, the two young men ambushed Harold outside of his favorite cafe one evening. There was no rain in sight, but the tension in the air thickened like a storm brewing. The taller thief shouted, his voice slicing through the evening air like a jagged blade. Harold turned slowly, recognizing their faces remnants of a past he thought he'd left behind. The two men weren't alone. They had brought crew members, their eyes dull and hungry, faces twisted with malice. "You should have stayed away," Harold replied, his heart steady but his instincts on high alert. "Maybe you should have stayed home," one of the new arrivals taunted, stepping forward. The group bristled with entitlement, each reflecting their own desire for dominance. "This time you won't be able to scare us off," the second thief sneered. Harold felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through him, reflecting years spent in the ring, facing opponents much larger than himself. "I'm not afraid of any of you," he asserted, each word dripping with the weight of his experiences. With a sudden rush, the group lunged at him, the night air snapping with energy. Instinct kicked in. Harold ducked and spun, cane swinging in a wide arc. The first thug stumbled, having underestimated the old man's reflexes. The chaos brewed around him as punches were thrown and bodies clashed against one another, but Harold stood his ground, embodying the spirit of someone who had fought all his life. Harold shouted amid the confusion, "What you're wielding is weakness." He struck out with the cane, deflecting blows, the night erupting into a dance of shadows and light, each swing carrying the force of 1,000 lessons learned. But numbers were against him. Another thug dove in, catching Harold off guard. An impact collided with his side, sending him tumbling to the ground, cane slipping from his grasp. In a heartbeat, the tide turned. Harold had lost his balance and his mind raced. He had confronted many foes before, but the reality of this moment gripped him tightly, the body of the old fighter now struggling against youth and malice. He looked up as they surrounded him, their faces gloating, hunger in their eyes. He could hear their taunts, but deeper down, a fire ignited within him. This wasn't just about fighting for himself. It was a battle for respect, for every person who had ever faced down their own demons. Gathering every ounce of strength left within him, he pushed himself back to his feet, heart racing against the chaos swirling around him. He shouted, the defiance rising up like a phoenix from the ash. "You've got it all wrong." But just as he stood, something shifted in the darkness surrounding them. A siren echoed in the distance, the sound of approaching help, his community, perhaps alerted by the chaos. One of the thugs shouted, eyes wide with panic. But Harold knew that the choice was his. This confrontation would serve as a turning point not just for himself but for them, for everyone watching. He called as the group began to disperse. "You'll never escape your choices." With that, the shadows began to split, his words reverberating into the night as he stood tall against the remnants of danger. But the thieves were driven by more than just anger now. They were scared, cornered creatures seeking to survive. As he watched them flee into the dark, Harold realized that this fight had opened a door, a chance not just for himself, but possibly for those who wished to follow a path of redemption. The sirens grew closer, punctuating the night with a sense of hope. But just then, an icy chill crept down Harold's spine, an unsettling foreboding settling in his gut. The leaders of the shadows were restless. He could feel it, pressure building against his freedom. And as he turned to greet the approaching light, he knew with every fiber of his being that this was only the beginning. The fight for respect, safety, and courage was far from over. It would flourish like wildflowers in a storm, battling for survival, leaving only one burning question in the air. What would come next? As the brass of the sirens blared behind him, uncertainty loomed, keeping him on the edge. Would the community stand beside him in this fight, or would the tides of anger rise once more? The answers were shrouded in the shadows, as the darkness whispered promises of trouble lurking just out of reach. And now, more than ever, Harold knew he had to prepare for the battle ahead, to become not just a fighter but a guiding light amidst the chaos.